7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Howdy, CROC Nation. Dr. Tommy and Ellie here with another amazing podcast for the greatest, most amazing, brave, courageous people in the universe. They're called Cancer Survivor Thrivers. Helping me on this podcast journey, Angel Santana. Have faith, let it begin. Angel, how are you, my friend?
I am doing very, very well. Hello, everybody in the CROC Nation. It is another beautiful, beautiful Sunday.
Oh, of course it is. It's every Sunday is a beautiful Sunday when our survivors are with us and hopefully getting some really good information from us and hopefully getting some benefit from these podcasts. I do have some good news. We had a series of about 7 or 8 podcasts that we called a module about, self-improvement and how to take advantage, if that's possible, with the diagnosis of cancer and how we could sort of help our survivors get to be the person they want to be. And that was pretty heavy duty stuff, wouldn't you say, Angel?
I would. And I also, we would be sad to we would be sad to forget to mention that this is in fact Easter Sunday.
Oh, well, God bless. Well, we do tape ahead, so I do apologize. It's not that I consciously forgot. So to our Christian survivors, thrivers, he is risen, and to those who are not of the Christian persuasion, it's a holy day for us, and we wish you a very blessed day, whether you're a believer or not a believer. It's irrelevant to us, but wow, yeah. Angel, since it is Easter, do you have a couple of Easter, what would you say, traditions that you like to share?
For me, if I'm off, the number one thing, really just spending time with the family. As you become a father and have children, of course, you have more Easter egg hunts. But really, traditionally, it's just a nice day of feasting and fellowship with the family.
Yeah. So actually, Easter was a huge day for me. As you know, my immigrant family, they were bakers, and holidays, unfortunately, as it means that it's good relaxation and family time for most people, those are the times that we work the hardest and seldom saw the men, because they were pretty much in the bakery 24/7 for weeks and weeks and weeks before the event. And my grandfather's biggest baby was his chocolate bunnies. And each grandchild, 13 of us, would get a free, I shouldn't say free, but, we got, because we had to work in the shop, but we got to pick our bunny. My cousin Pammy was a big white chocolate person, and I think everybody else was pretty much milk chocolate. And boy, probably the best chocolate I've ever had. So definitely great memories. And then the other thing that comes to mind is Jeffrey Hunter, King of Kings. Even to this day, I watched that movie, listening to dun 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 dun, listening to the music and the majestic, story of Jesus. So so lots of memories. So thanks for reminding me and cueing me in. But what I was going to get to was, after having some serious, a series of serious podcasts, today's going to be a bit more lighthearted and quick. And I think that our survivors are probably saying, "Thank you, Lord." He's going to make it quick on Easter Sunday. So let's make it quick. So last week I had a great opportunity, a blessing, an amazing experience. I was asked to speak to a bunch of medical students. As you know, in our medical center, our healthcare system, Angel, we have a medical school associated with it. So I have the great privilege and honor of sometimes teaching some of the residents and students, and sometimes I get to mentor them. Radiation oncology is a very, very small subspecialty, so I don't get a lot of students that come my way, but when I do, they're very enthusiastic and very wonderful. And one of the younger students, I guess second-year student, started an oncology/radiology club for people who would be interested in the future of going into those specialties. And I was asked to speak. And you know where I took him, Angel? I took him to our favorite restaurant, open
No.
read down in Middletown, and we had a bunch of cool food thrown in front of us, and those couple of students that came. It was just a tremendous experience for me, and as I said, such an honor that they asked me to give them some advice. And what I thought after I was, in the middle of talking to them and getting questions and things, I thought to myself, these kids represent the next generation of oncologists. These kids, in 10 years from now will be us. They'll be, replacing a lot of us as we as we go toward the end of the career. I hope they never replace me, because I want to work until I die. But for those of us who do want to retire, this is our future. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be a great podcast to talk to our survivors about, the next generation oncologists? Should we be afraid? And that's really going to be the topic tonight. And again, small sample size, bunch of kids, but I did have a couple of things that I thought were keen insights, and as far as the differences when I came out of medical school and when these guys are going to come out of medical school. And I won't keep you guys in suspense. I think we're going to be okay. I think that the care of our oncology patients will be preserved. I think that these kids are brilliant. I think that they're going to have a lot more tools than we did to use in their arsenal. I think that cancer care will become much more individualized and based on molecular markers, and everybody's going to have their own genomic, fingerprint, which we could take advantage of and find targets. And I'm hoping that we will be out of business, hopefully, in the next 50 years, and there will be no subspecialty of oncology, and I'll be making Slurpees at the 7-Eleven, because why not? Or be the Walmart greeter, one of the two. And Angel, you should be a Walmart greeter with me, I think.
I would love to. Why not?
Yeah. So the first thing I want to share was a funny story. I think I was might have been my first year of medical school, and I was in a biochemistry lab, and I had a Professor Brodsky, who's probably dead now, and she was basically telling us, oh, you guys, you missed the what would you say, the golden time, the golden era of medicine, and things are going to be so different, and managed care and insurance companies, and you guys blah 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 blah. And the good news is she was partially right and partially wrong. She was right that medicine was changing, but she was wrong in her timing, because I really did see the heyday of medicine, and at least for a good part of my career, there were, being a doctor, was something that was a honorable thing to do. And, we were respected as professionals, and people appreciated us. And, for many years, for decades, the fight was there, certainly more of a fight than my predecessors had, but, certainly manageable fights. And I thought to myself, wow, things are changing now. Dr. Brodsky's comments and her prescience, although late, is certainly coming to pass. So I thought to myself I would break things down into 1, 2, 3, 4 subtopics that I talked about with the medical students, and tried to take their pulse. There's a little metaphor for you. Take their pulse as far as what their thoughts of going into oncology now, as opposed to in our day, and even a little bit before me. And I'll break those 4 categories into prestige, money, control, and I guess self-direction, I guess, would be self-destiny. And let's start, first of all, why things had to change. So the old model, where the doctors were in charge, and the doctors basically were making the decisions on every aspect of medical care and health economics. They were making the decisions on what tests to get, making decisions on how to care for patients, but not only that, making decisions about hospital administration, operational issues in the hospital, purchases, all those types of things. And also, billing was out of control. Unfortunately, we're human, and I think a lot of our predecessors, got greedy and they started taking advantage of the system. And then when, Medicare came around, and then, insurance claims and fraud and all those types of things, I guess I say, we killed the golden goose, because in those days when the physicians were rightfully at least given the opportunity of being the advocate for their patients, we now have lost that because of poor behavior and history. So there is a reason, why things are changing, and many of the reasons are actually very good. I don't want to sound like, a bleeding heart liberal, but I will say, that it's never too good to give one small group of people too much power. It's better if there's checks and balances, and I think there was really no checks and balances in the beginning, and then moderate checks and balances in my career, and now there's probably too many checks and balances where everything is sort of out of balance. So we'll start with prestige. So I use the old, I guess I shouldn't use his name, but, one of the first surgeons that I met 35 years ago in the old Horton Hospital was an absolute buffoon. He was a pompous, arrogant son of a bitch. I try not to swear on this podcast, but he does deserve that. And he was just a horrible, awful person. And I'll tell you, he really thought who he was. But I will say this, and I kind of touched on it before in the introduction. When you became a doctor, when you went to medical school, when you got your degree, there was a feeling that you've accomplished something. There was a feeling of you had basically, just by completing that and getting that special degree where you were given that special privilege of caring for the sick, there was a certain amount of prestige that was given you. Just without even having to prove yourself, you were just automatically, oh, Dr. Santana, or Dr. Iannelli, or Dr. Serrano, or Dr. whatever. There was, you would walk into a restaurant, oh, there's Dr. Santana. You would go into a store, to buy a suit. Oh, there's Dr. Santana. You would go to the post office and do normal things and go to the bank, and you were treated a little differently. You weren't treated the same. And I will say that one of the things I talk to the students, again, 4 things we're going to talk about today about the prestige, is medicine has lost that prestige. There's a lot less feeling that just because you're a doctor, that means anything really special. I mean, certainly doctors are appreciated for the most part, and not in many circumstances, and sometimes not deservedly. But a lot of these young kids, and I know I'm part of this process, I'm not a big fan of being called doctor outside of the office. As a matter of fact, I'm not even a big fan of being called doctor in the office. I am, and I let it be, because that's sort of the way it has to be. But, there is sort of that loss of prestige. And I'm going to hit every one of these 4 things. I'm going to say the same thing. Each one of the students, when I talked about, things that were different or whatever, they were okay and absolutely fine. There was no like, oh my God, I wish that I was a student in your day, or even a student in the 1950s or 60s. Boy, wouldn't that have been cool? Or now I'm a doctor and I don't get that same, that same automatic respect that you got. But they were fine with it. So that's fantastic. And number 2, the point that nobody wants to talk about is that we were afforded a very good income. Doctors make more money than most people. However, I think one of the misconceptions, and I get this all the time, even from some members of my own family, it's like, well, why don't you pay for dinner? I mean, you're a doctor, you make a lot of money. Well, I'll tell you this, and this might be a little shocking to people. If you want to make money, don't go to medical school, because you can make a lot more money being a businessman or whatever. Doctors really don't make that much money, and they certainly don't make that much money now. So the income has gone down substantially. Doctors who bust their ass, are making less than plumbers and some of the tradesmen. And, my contractors come in here and they, I don't even know if they know what algebra is, and they they make a lot of money, and God bless them, and they deserve it. Good for them. But that money privilege is not there anymore. We used to be, in the lower upper class or the upper middle class. Now we are completely middle class citizens. And you know what? The students were fine with that. The third thing is control. Control on different levels, control of patient care, control administratively, and control of the staff. And we had pretty much every single aspect of control was in our hands. We were basically ran the medical staff meetings. If we wanted equipment, we would just tell the hospital what we wanted without even doing any sort of analysis or to see whether these pieces of equipment were of value or whether they would make money for the hospital or it made sense or they would be used. I mean, if we wanted something, it was like a spoiled kid in a candy store. It was just terrible. And that's not the case anymore. As a matter of fact, most decisions about capital purchases and all these types of things are made by the administrators. The administrators have now taken over the power that we gave up. And again, not a good thing for sure, but had to be done. There had to be some change for sure. And again, the students were completely fine with that. And the last thing is just self-direction or self-determination. I am a dinosaur, one of the last of the Mohicans, Angel. The self-employed or the contracted physician model is falling by the wayside. I would say that out of that group of students that I saw, I would be shocked if not 100% of them will be captured physicians. And what that means is they will be working for a medical system, just like your doctors up on the POB, up in the outpatient building in the hospital. They punch a clock like everybody else. They get paid, they get a paycheck every 2 weeks or whatever by the hospital. There's not that, that sort of self-determination. And so looking now just globally, we have prestige, we have money, we have control, and we have self-determination. So I sat down with these students and we were having a good time and had some really nice conversations, and they had some great questions. I really was probing them, not so much for this podcast. This podcast was really more of a product of my observations, but probing them to see what their thoughts were for their future. What if they were okay with this new model, with less prestige, with less money, with less control, with less self-determination. And I think they were very prideful. They were very happy with their choice. They love being students. They are really proud that they're going to be doctors, and they feel that the same way that we should have felt in our day, that what a great and honorable profession that we were in order to serve our cancer survivors. And I think that we're going to be fine. I think our cancer survivors today who will be alive decades from now will be okay. I think that our cancer survivors that will become cancer survivors over the next couple of decades are going to be okay. And I think that our cancer survivors that haven't even been born yet are going to be okay. And I'll leave you with this, Angel. One of my pet peeves is when a colleague comes to me, and I mention this to the students, and they'll say to me, "Oh my God, I can't take this anymore. I can't wait to retire." Or my kids, I'm going to make sure none of them, ever go into medicine. They'll be crazy to go into medicine. And I think that that is the worst possible attitude. And maybe it's because we saw some of the heyday. We had the prestige, we had the money, we had the control, we had the self-determination. And maybe as the rule, the way it is with human behavior, right, Angel? If you never had it, you don't miss it. If you had it and you lose it, then you miss it. But I will say this: the people who maybe even had it and lost it and maybe aren't as enamored with their jobs anymore, with what their choices of becoming a doctor, it goes back to the whole, Hippocrates types of things. It's like if you went into medicine for money, if you went into medicine for prestige, if you went into medicine, for ego-driven reasons and not for the purity of and the sanctity of taking care of our amazing survivors, then I say to you that even though you did lose it, you really shouldn't care that you lost it, because you know what? It doesn't matter whether you had it and you lost it, or you never had it, or you had it for your whole career. That shouldn't have been the reason. And it reminds me of one last story. A very famous physician that actually everybody in Orange County knows. I won't say his name. I remember in the 1990s, the early 1990s, I was on call. He was on call, and we were just happened to be behind the nurse's station looking. Remember the old paper charts? You don't remember, but they would be like books. They would be like, phone books for each patient. And we were both going through some charts on some patients, and he kind of cornered me, and he started telling me about his vision and how he picked medicine, and how he had a plan on how he was going to make a ton of money, and how, what his strategy was to make the money. And not once in that conversation did he ever mention, patient care, and he was a fantastic doctor, which is wonderful, but it was kind of paradoxical. And thank God, at least he had that. But boy, he was way off. I mean, he was nowhere near the mindset that these kids that I had dinner with had, and thankfully I still have. And what I tell everybody is, the minute that I lose this perspective is the minute, yes, that I do have to retire. Angel Santana, any last words?
I have a question actually that came to mind. When you were sitting down with the students and you were interacting with them, what would you say was the number one question that, if they had one, to you about just anything in general? Was there a common question or something that that they wanted to know that you could provide them?
Well, I just kind of talked. I did my thing. I did my shtick. I kind of went through all the things that our survivors are listening to right now. Went through the good, the bad, and the ugly, and tried to take their pulse and try to get a feel of why they wanted to go into this. One student, had a family member who, was misdiagnosed and really affected him. And that's when his motivation. Another person just has a great interest in pediatric oncology. A couple of the other kids were interested in doing some kind of oncologic imaging or diagnostic radiology. And then we had a couple of radiation oncologists, future radiation oncologists of America, who really wanted to know about radiation oncology and all the cool things that we do in our field. So there was not anything specific, Angel. There were just a lot of general questions. It was more me giving them advice and me supporting them and me trying to really tell them how proud I was of them and how much I was very grateful that they had such great attitudes and they were in the field for the right reason. And I really wanted to embrace them, as colleagues. Even now, you want to embrace the students now, even before they become doctors. It's funny because if you look at the Hippocratic Oath that everyone takes on graduation day, one of the things that is one of our responsibilities is to teach the future generation of doctors. So, I think, and I hope that doctors that are hearing this podcast are in agreement with my thoughts and my words.
Wow. Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, it all comes to the fact that you are a great leader, and you should be proud and honored, like you said you are, that they sought you out, and that somebody realized that you would make a huge transition, or not even transition, you would make a good impact on our future. And I think that that's always been your end game anyway, is to pave the road for the next generation. And I applaud you for that as your friend, co-host, producer, and I'm sure I can speak for all the patients that you've interacted with, may say the same.
Oh, I appreciate that, Angel. Angel, have faith, let it begin. Everybody, please try to look him up. Angel has a really cool sermon he gave that he put onto the podcast. You can listen to it on Have Faith, Let It Begin on all platforms. Rod Freeman, Small Biz Up. Rod, I've been hitting you up every day, doing projects with you. We're going to get the CROC podcast even better. We're going to get an intro. We're going to do a little YouTube video. So we're all up for it, and hopefully get dinner in May, get our board going, which leads me to the board of directors, the greatest and most devoted group of people who do this for nothing, do it because they want to make the world better for our survivors. patreon.com/thrivers. Michael John Benzea, Charlotte Larson, thank you for your support. And you guys, this is your pep talk, right? You guys, sometimes you probably don't even listen to my podcast. You just go to like minute 27 and you say, okay, I want your pep talk. All right, here it is. You guys are amazing. You have gone through so much. You end up in a doctor's office and you're scared and there's some weird things happening in your body, or there's some, unexpected results on an x-ray or a blood test, and you're waiting for, that doctor to come in and tell you some that it's not cancer. And they tell you, you know what, I have bad news for you, you have cancer. But you know what? That doesn't mean that you're going to die. That doesn't mean you're not going to do well. It does not mean that it's going to change your life. You guys are brave and strong, and you've gotten through the diagnosis. You've gotten hit right in the nose, and you just got up and you just wiped yourself off, and then you took your treatments and you got knocked down again, and you got up and you brushed the dirt off. And then you have to live with all the discrimination and all the stuff that comes along with cancer. And you know what? You're still going. You guys are like that Energizer bunny. You take a licking and you keep on ticking, and you just go and go and go and go. You guys are amazingly strong, tough, just so worthy of all good things. You're special. You're unique. You're loved. You're supported. You're not alone. You guys are fighters, and Angel and I will tell you, you got this. And we end this podcast the same as we end every podcast, exactly the same. On behalf of Angel and the board of directors at CROC, we wish you all a long, healthy, happy, and cancer-free life. God bless you. God be with you. Peace.